All right, what up, people? It's another episode of Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Tonight's topic, superheroes versus superhoes. Pat, how you feeling?
I think you touched on it last week. First of all, sports in the summer suck. And Jay, I like baseball. Let's not get it twisted. But when it's hot and all you want is a cold beer and a burger and to see what's walking around at the beach, the last thing on your mind
is who's at bat.
Yeah,
man. Home runs don't cut it in the later part of the summer. You know, it's funny because right now you think about it, you've got the WNBA, you've got baseball, you've got preseason football, you've got the off season with the NBA. It's not like there isn't sports being talked about all the time.
right.
But for some reason, as drama filled as it is, it's just not compelling to anybody right
Yeah,
now.
all you're really thinking about is what's next. So like if you're thinking about sports, you're thinking about maybe fantasy football, or you're thinking like the NFL starts in about a month. You're thinking the baseball playoff race starts in about a month. Maybe the baseball trading deadline. I'm just saying, in other parts of the year, you're walking. If you're a sports enthusiast, you're like walking around every day, like in the backdrop of your mind, thinking about sports. Right now, it is way in the back of my brain, and that's just because it's hot. Pass me a bud, a cold one.
So let me ask you this, just to wrap up, the segment, because we know that we're done with sports. But are there any superheroes left to save sports in the middle of summer, or is it just that there's no phenomenon right now? I mean, last year, it was the fact that like the Yankees had all these home run hitters, and there was great stuff going on. But for some reason, this summer it just doesn't seem like there's a superhero.
What's funny, the Yankees are on pace to hit more home runs than last year, but it's not really feeling like a novelty, right? So, to your point though, somebody would have to come across and do something we've never seen before. There's great things happening right now, but nothing groundbreaking. And unless someone comes in with a cape and does something we have never... You know what was my headline today that I got on my sports feed on my phone? A 16-year-old teenage boy, goes by the name of Booga, won $3 million in a Fortnite
I saw that
competition.
Yeah.
Congrats to him. I think that's
Congrats
great.
to him, yeah.
But that led my sports feed on my phone.
That's about the
Translation?
that we're looking at. Sports sucks in the summer.
Period. That's that. Now,
All right, moving on.
you know who else sucks, Jay?
Tell me.
So, like, on your list of, like, the worst people on
On
Earth,
the face of Earth.
right?
Yeah.
There's probably, like, what? Pedophiles,
Yeah.
right? Rapists,
Yep.
racists.
Right.
Well, I guess no worse than that, right? So unless we're talking, like, Satan, right?
Well,
These are pretty much the worst.
Those are the worst. I would also put hackers in there.
Yeah. So let's talk about hackers. So
Okay. And we're not talking about the good kinds of hackers. We're talking about the evil hackers that just fuck shit up and do it because they just want to fuck shit up.
there are people, if you hack into the Federal Reserve Bank to try to set yourself up for life and for generations to come, there's a lot wrong with that. But if you were to get away with it, which you're probably not, the upside is you're set forever. Your great grandkids are set forever, and that money is all insured.
Right.
Right. If you have nothing better to do, but to steal the identity of innocent people for kicks, or just to ruin them, causing them months and months and months of inconvenience, you're the scum of the earth. Like the fact that I'm comparing you to like rapists, pedophiles, like, and Jay, these people, I gotta think, these people aren't masterminds. They're good with a computer and a keyboard and a mouse, and it could be some twerp sitting in his mother's basement, some person with, he hates his acne, hates his penis size or lack thereof, hates his bird chest, he's whatever. He hurts everything about himself. And he's like, let me get better with coding so I can hack that 80-year-old's account. I hate them.
Now, I'm going to throw a little attention on this from a different side because this is our next subject. But you mentioned it from the standpoint that it's, a young male, which you're probably not wrong. But why is it not females? For the most part, we identify these hackers as males, mostly younger. They could be middle-aged. Who knows? Who gives a fuck? But the majority of the evil done on a computer to mess with the average consumer's life is done by males. Why? What do we associate that with, and what are we missing here?
I think women are very powerful, smart, cunning, you name it. I think when women do evil, generally speaking, it's in reaction to something that so
out of spite.
Right now, I don't think there's no women in the world that just sit up and have an evil plot. Of course it exists. I think generally speaking, that's not the average woman's MO. To just randomly, for no reason, fuck with you.
Yeah. And I'll add to that the reason that I see is that, again, on one hand, you could compliment them on their creativity to figure this shit out, but it's that lack of self-responsibility with that creativity, because for some reason, these guys think that it's a game. They think that it's a game to take people's information and do whatever they want with it for personal, financial gain.
Or for kicks.
Or for kicks, exactly.
Which is even...
Right. And that is, to me, where, this, on a bigger scale, is something that when you look at hacker scum from the worldview of election rigging, of, breaking into, government secure servers and corporate servers and other powerful interests. These guys do it for shits and giggles as well as for financial gain, but also for the ego trip that they get out of being able to market themselves as being the best hacker. I mean, that was one of the things about Wired Magazine, was that there was an ego trip on your ability to hack the impenetrable services.
It's another version of dick measuring.
That's exactly right.
And the title of today's episode is Superheroes versus Superhoes. Here's the thing. These hackers feel like superheroes.
Right.
They're actually hoes.
That's exactly
because the thing about the internet, greatest invention ever, right? But it gave power or perceived power to the weak. So a person who would never, ever have the balls to rob somebody face to face or say slander in someone's face can suddenly do it behind the keyboard. Like,
you just hit the nail on the coffin.
You know how many people grew a set of balls because of Twitter?
Right. That's
like
exactly
it saved
right.
these
Our
people.
President?
So these people that don't have the nerve, the balls, the moxie, the backbone to go up to somebody and be like, I don't like you because you're Jewish, or I don't like all Asians, or I hate the way you swing a bat, or you suck at your sport. They didn't have it to go into somebody's face and do that. But they can sit and type 1,000 characters and be the toughest tough guys in the world. And then they do it so that you can't locate them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So again, they're not superheroes. They're feeling like it.
Right.
They're actually hoes.
Now, let's get into the definition of superheroes versus superhoes. What makes a superhero that title is obviously that he or she does something of phenomenal value that benefits society as a whole. Even if it benefits them, it benefits everyone else greater.
Correct.
Versus a superhoe that we may look at them being successful, but the value of their success was based on them selling out to a certain extent their dignity, their integrity, all of these things of moral value
Right.
were compromised for their monetary, financial, material gain. And what you're looking at is someone that, they may look successful, but truthfully, their success is on the backs of innocent people.
Yeah, so it could be a situation where it's not what you do, but how you do it, or what you do, or why you do it.
Right. So let's analyze that a little bit further. If you were to look, obviously, business right now, give me a superhero off the top of your head.
Amazon.
Okay. Why?
They have addressed needs. The need for certain services and delivering that need quickly.
Okay. I think that's terrific. Superhoe.
Amazon.
Okay.
Because it's killing everybody else.
Yeah.
So for the consumer, we really don't care. We want what we want when we want it.
Right.
But if you're someone else trying to get in the game right now,
Yeah.
this is a topic for another day, but I feel like there's a dinner table
Mm-hmm.
and there's Disney's eating,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon's eating, and Walmart is eating.
Right.
And everyone else is fighting for the scraps.
Right. I
That's
think
a topic
fair.
for another day.
Absolutely. I'm gonna give you a different superhero and a different superhero in this comparison. So I'm gonna say a superhero is Microsoft, and if you look at the history of Microsoft over the last 30 some odd years or 40 some odd years, what they have done around the world in giving access to computing in terms of superhero performance. And you can love or hate Microsoft. I don't really give a fuck. But what they have done for the world in terms of giving access, before the personal computer was created and everything in between, Microsoft has really created access in a way that nobody else did. That's why I call them a superhero. Versus a superhero, I would say, are three credit agencies: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian.
That's a great
Those are
great hoe.
Yes.
Great hoes.
Because they're basically controlling us in a way that they are our pimps.
And Equifax is the equivalent of a pimp that didn't protect the hoe.
That's exactly right.
Because that's their job,
they're
and they
useless
expose all of
fucking
us.
pimp.
Right, I
Exactly.
used to, right. Yeah.
So they really are the Superhoes, in my opinion.
Well done. You know what? Real quick,
Yeah.
since you mentioned Microsoft, doing some research on Bill Gates, some reading on him. At 13 years old, which I think for him was 1968, if I'm not mistaken, he had full-time access to, at that time, was the premium version of a supercomputer.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring it up because it's when people do amazing things, we like to put them on a pedestal, and deservedly so.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned the word access, and I believe I'm paraphrasing, but I believe he's been quoted, even himself, as saying, I was probably the only 13-year-old with that access. If there was 3 million 13-year-olds with that access, I'm not saying there'll be 3 million Bill Gates.
Right.
But there'll be more than one.
Right.
Let's go to commercial and come right back.
All right. Let's take a break.
We are back. Thank you for sticking with us. Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Jay, superheroes versus superhoes. I'm putting you on the spot, my friend. Give me the question of the day.
All right, Pat. So, from one of our listeners, would you rather have a faithful wife who makes bank but sex is meh, or a housewife who rocks your world but gives it to the neighborhood as well?
Can I walk off the set?
Come on, Pat. You're on the spot here.
You know
A
what?
and B.
Give me the chick with money, man. Because, look, bro, let's give this some legs.
You don't want your world rocked, man?
It's been rocked. And another day we can talk about this, but you can get your world rocked, and it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
How long is it going to last? Or it can last for a long time. But the sex that's meh, he's being objective. It could be meh because of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
It could be meh because of bad chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
It could be meh because she's making all this bank and comes home exhausted, and you didn't do the right things to get her mind and mood right.
Mm-hmm.
So I take the woman with the bank, and try to work on the meh sex.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways to spruce up sex. You didn't ask, but I'm going to share some. We can bring in a third party.
Okay.
We can introduce toys. We can introduce different methods.
Mm-hmm.
BDSM. Or here's an idea. Hey, babe, what do you like?
Mm-hmm.
You can communicate better. Now, if there's no passion and there's no chemistry,
mm-hmm.
you can introduce everything in the world and you're screwed.
Right.
But I would roll my
You're
dice.
actually not screwed, but
pun unintended. So I would roll my dice with that woman. The other woman, before you jump in, man, Jay, we've been friends a long time.
mm-hmm.
You want to borrow one of my shirts? Sure.
Right.
Want to borrow my car? Sure.
Right.
You can't have my lady, bro.
No.
And not only can you not have her, so if we're gonna throw a barbecue,
Right.
and the whole block is comparing notes,
Right.
on my bro, I can't do it. Now
Right.
you answer the same question.
So obviously you answered from one side. So I have to take the other for this episode, and I'm going to say it this way. So if your housewife is rocking your world, now this is the reason why men get married in the first place. They could say whatever they want, but all men, their reasons for finally settling down, finally committing, have to do with the overall composition of needs being met. So if she's a great cook, that's important. If she's making money, that's important. If she is a beautiful wife, that's important. They're all factors. But if she's rocking your world, it is very hard for the average man to not put that at the head of the table in terms of his values. Partially because, again, he's thinking to himself, I get to come home to this every night. Now, on the aspect of her giving it to the whole neighborhood, believe it or not, men are very good at deceiving themselves. And what I mean by that is that you understand what you have. And if she's giving it away to the whole neighborhood, it probably has more to do with you than it does with her. So whereas some men will get very angry about the fact that she's giving it away to the whole neighborhood, other men might actually be consensual to it. Because that guy or those guys who are getting it on the side every once in a while are envious of you because you get it all the time. Now, whether or not you can handle it all the time is part of the reason why she might be giving it away. But it also might be one of those things where that's part of the price that you paid for having her at home.
You know what's crazy? That's legit. Because I've had guys say to me that they loved... See, I'm the kind of person, I don't really care what anybody thinks about. Yeah. Like, if I'm into a girl, I'm into the girl.
Right.
But I've had a lot of guys say to me that they want to flaunt their girl. And they like when other guys come up to them and say, man, you're lucky. That I'm the kind of person, I wouldn't get angry if you said it because I don't feel threatened, but I could really care less.
Right.
But I found myself to be in the minority. So that's a legit.
Well, and I also have to take it one step further. This actually goes back to Proverbs. I believe it is Proverbs 7. And, verses 5 through 35 basically tell you about the woman who takes the boy devoid of knowledge. And she brings him into her bedroom because her husband is away getting a big bag of money. And this is for all you men out there who are working your balls off and your wife is at home, twiddling her thumbs, and she's supposed to be taking care of the house or whatever. She gets bored. And she's looking for a boy devoid of knowledge, Juan the pool boy, whatever, his name may be. And she's going to entertain him, bring him into her bedroom full of, fresh linens and perfumes, and lay him down on the bed and have her way with him because she's bored and she wants to exercise her power. She can't do it with her husband because when he comes home, he's tired and exhausted, and if they do it, it's meh to her. So it's one of those things where for her own shits and giggles and amusement, that's why she needs something outside the regular.
I'm looking over the email that prompted this subject, and I see that our listener called this part 1.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do is let's finish this, but part 2 is a similar question as it pertains to men. We'll do that next week. But what's funny about this subject is superheroes versus superhoes.
Yeah.
Listening to what we just said, both apply in both ways. Mm-hmm. For example, to the guy who ranks having his mind blown, pun intended, over some of the other things, that hard-working, $500,000 salaried woman is not a superhero to him.
Right.
She's basically a hoe, and not in the traditional sense, but like a superhero, like you're not fulfilling my needs.
Right.
Whereas he views the trophy that's rocking his world as a superhero.
Right.
Another guy who values the money and the work ethic more is thinking to himself, you know what? She's not doing it for me. I'm in here faking orgasms. Pause. Yes, men do fake orgasms. Another subject for another day. I'm in here faking orgasms. She's not rocking my world, but she's a really hard worker and she makes so much money and we have an easy financial life. To him, she's a superhero and he's judging the girl that's sleeping with everybody.
Right.
And viewing her as a superhero.
Yes.
So it's really, you're right. It comes down to the guy and his lenses, how he views the world and what's important to him.
That's right. To take it one step further is the fact that, again, the impact of a superhero is their ability to lift everybody else on their shoulders. And to a certain extent, there's an ego boost in that for the superhero. And, they get a thrill out of being able to make this impact and have this love and attention. And it's not to say that they don't have a genuine interest in helping and making the world a better place. But it's one of those things where the fulfillment that they get inside is also somewhat connected to the, oh, thank you, Superman, you're my hero, or thank you, Superwoman, you're my hero.
Yo, if you ever do that voice again, I'm just saying, don't do it when we're in public, bro. Nah. But you know what? The word ego.
Yeah.
Good word. Again, you're bringing me full circle here. The guy that doesn't want the rich girl, or the one that's making all this money,
mm-hmm.
It may, like you said, it may not be about her at all.
That's right.
He might be angry that she makes more than him.
That's correct.
Which is another whole level of weakness.
Right. And that touches on our subject from last week, but it goes in a different direction because now what we're talking about is his ability to even get it on is tied to... So now the sex is meh.
Right. Because he's in there with someone who he views as an alpha to him. He feels insecure, inadequate.
Right.
Meanwhile, she may not even care that she makes double what he makes.
Right.
But he cares.
Right.
So
right.
now he's not giving it to her right. Because
Right.
his mind is scrambled.
Now let me put a twist on this. What if for the woman who makes bank, the sex is meh to her because she doesn't necessarily look at sex as fulfillment based on all the other things that she's focused on in life?
What if it's mad at her because she views him as a chump? Like,
Okay.
maybe she's thinking you make a very good point, but it can be mad at her for different reasons.
Right.
The reason you pointed out, the one I'm bringing up is she could be like, you know what? I shouldn't have to work this hard.
Right.
I'm working this hard. I'm this successful, but I never thought I'd be the primary breadwinner.
Right.
Maybe that's a turn off for her.
Right.
And back to the ego word, the ego thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason why a guy might be inclined to take that housewife that's sleeping with everybody else is because not only might he have a thing like, hey, look at me. I've got her. You slept with her while I was at work, but she's here with me.
Right.
And maybe he knows these same guys are going home
Right.
unhappy at home, not
Right.
being fulfilled there. So now he actually feels he's got one up on them. Like,
Right.
you guys have to come take the scraps of what's mine during the day. But at night, she's still
Well,
mine.
not only that, but he may be using it as leverage against them. So let's take this one step further. Juan the pool boy gets to sleep with the wife, but now the husband comes home and he looks Juan the pool boy dead in the eye, and without saying anything, he knows, and he's like, "So Juan, you're gonna work for the next 12 months at half pay, right?"
Wow.
You understand? Because he knows and Juan knows. And Juan's either going to leave and never come back because he knows his ass is caught.
In which case, he's giving up the great sex
That's exactly. And the money.
and the money.
That's right. He's got a double whammy. But if he has any honor whatsoever, because he knows he's going to work at half price. You know why? Because out of respect for himself, he's going to say, you know what? I got a piece of yours, and I'm going to do right by working my balls off for the next 12 months for you out of respect. But if she leaves you and comes with me, I did right. If she stays, that's cool.
And there's a feeling of a purchase. Like
That's
a transaction was just made.
That's exactly right.
So that's Juan the pool boy. How about Donald the accountant from 3 doors down?
Right.
Now Donald, his wife is hot. She's not giving it to him.
Right.
All Donald has is sneaking over to your house
Yep.
and being
And
with
getting
your
a
wife.
piece of yours. Yeah.
What's Donald's angle? Like if he finds out the husband knows, what's his angle to continue or not continue? Because the guy doesn't have the leverage like he does over Juan the pool boy.
Right. Right. Well, no, he's got a different leverage because he's probably inviting Donald to his barbecue. And you see now when Donald comes to the barbecue and he looks Donald in the eye and he sees how Donald looks at his wife in the eye and he looks Donald back in the eye and he's just like, okay, I see what's going on. So Donald, you think you can keep up this charade with me coming to my barbecues knowing that you're fucking my wife? What do you think Donald's reaction is going to be?
He'll spill his macaroni and cheese. I think he'll get so damn nervous.
That's exactly right. Not only that, but when the husband goes to Donald's wife and starts flirting with her.
That's what I was waiting for you to say.
But that I had to build up to that.
Because
man. We're on a
that's the
podcast.
play.
Exactly.
That's the ace.
Yep. And you know that his wife is probably going to respond for 2 reasons. Number one, if she's not giving it to Donald, there's a reason behind that.
Well, and number 2, someone is plugging that hole.
Right.
Even if it's not Donald.
Right.
She could be plugging it herself.
Right. Or more than likely.
Someone else is plugging it.
Exactly.
And here's the thing. Ego is this subheading. The guy with the housewife that's giving it to the neighborhood, is he somehow more attractive to the other neighborhood wives?
That's a good question.
So now he's this guy with this gorgeous wife that
We're not
has.
talking about Donald, the
Right,
Donald character.
right. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about the husband of the housewife who's sleeping with everybody.
Okay.
Let's call him Rick. Now, Rick has this bad wife.
Right.
And
Who rocks his world.
Who rocks his world. And all the neighborhood guys are lining up to be with her. And they are with her. But they're not just lining up. They're cutting grass. They're running errands. They're going to Home Depot and Lowe's.
Rick's life is made.
So Rick is chilling.
Exactly.
Rick is making all this money, doing all the hard work. He's coming home. Everything is done for him.
So Rick is really a pimp.
So now, these other women in the neighborhood, are they thinking to themselves, how did Rick get her? And are they looking at him like, dag, Rick isn't even fazed by the fact that his wife is doing this? Does this whole combination, his persona, is it attracting the other neighborhood women to him?
It's a good question. I mean, it could be one of those things where there are those women who think that, he must be impotent or there must be something wrong because his wife's giving it to the neighborhood. But at the same time, the amount of stuff that's being done for them, they're living like king and queen, there's naturally going to be those women who are attracted to Rick and saying, well, he's the king, and his wife is giving it away to the neighborhood for him
because
to benefit
in our
their
description
household.
of his wife, we've never said she wasn't good to him.
Right.
She's just sharing her body.
That's right. That's right.
Now,
she's good to him and everybody else.
Right. Now, the reason why I bring this up, my whole life, anytime I would sit down with a girl and talk to a girl, like as a friend, the guy that sleeps with everybody, in school, on campus, at work, and actually I find this pretty amazing. I used to find it amazing, but now I'm used to it. But, growing up, like I know your parents, I know how you were raised. You kind of taught to respect women and all this stuff, and and you have a sister, and your sisters, I have sisters, they're taught, don't put yourself out there, you know those things that are taught. So it used to amaze me, but not anymore. Women are attracted to that guy. Like when the women see the guy who slept with every girl in her dorm, she's not thinking, well, I'm not going to be number 41.
Right.
She's thinking,
I'm gonna be the one that tames him.
Right. So generally speaking, women they're drawn to the guy.
Yeah.
That not only the jock or the star, but the guy that has the girl or women doing
whatever it is.
Whatever. Now in this case, this is a little bit different. She's gorgeous, catering to him, and she's getting around, and he knows it, but still walks around head held high and doesn't care.
Right.
I got a feeling. Please email us. Let us know your opinion. But I got a feeling these women are going to be drawn to him, man.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. All right, we're back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat, we're talking about superheroes versus superhoes. And our question of the night was based on faithful wife of means versus unfaithful wife who's rocking your world but giving it to everyone else as well. Now, I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I'm going to ask you from the standpoint of how modern society looks at relationships from the younger generations and polyamory and some of these other types of relationships. So they're not even getting married. They're looking at relationships from, I don't want to get too committed or too involved. So how does this fit into their world in terms of what makes a superhero versus a superhoe when a lot of them are afraid of commitment and love in general?
Porn.
Okay. Give it to me. I mean, explain it to me.
Porn. So, a lot of us. So, what shapes us? Whatever you see in your household,
Mm-hmm.
what happens at school,
Right.
and then media.
Okay.
You and I grew up in an era where there might have been a kid on your block who had an older brother, had a dirty magazine stash.
Right.
There was like a 5-minute window per week where you guys can sneak,
Right.
go through the stash, return it to the same page.
Right.
You know, or you knew somebody with a porno, you'd steal it,
Right.
pop
Somebody's
it in.
dad had one.
Right.
Yeah.
Today,
It's everywhere.
everywhere.
Yep.
The access
It's
is
almost impossible to hide it from your kids.
and the access is earlier and it's more available.
Correct.
Okay. Let's take music. I remember the general thing in like there was love songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we used to party and there was like a portion of the party where it was like for slow jams. Like that
That's
was
right.
a thing, right?
That's right. You would get on the dance floor with your girl or with someone that you liked.
Right.
And you would just,
Okay.
dance slowly.
So those still exist, but in terms of what's played on the
Damn near
radio,
impossible to find.
right? In terms of what's actually played, like right now, you can find that music. You have to look for it.
Yeah.
So what's readily available, I feel like every song is telling girls to be a stripper
Yes.
or to get some guy's money
Right.
or talking about how this girl is sleeping with you and your friends.
Right.
So think about the mind of a 9, 10, 11-year-old. He has seen porn.
You're hearing porn.
You're hearing porn.
Right.
Like, so by the time, and you might be living, because the divorce rate is more than 50%, you might be living in a broken home or broken where, you know, your parents don't live together type of thing. Like,
Right.
Not that it's a bad home. So now you have this girl you like. Or if you're a girl, you have this guy you like. That other person grew up the same way.
Right.
So by the time you guys link up, your ideas of a relationship might be, yo, let's just have fun and see where it goes.
Right.
Nothing more, nothing further. Keep in mind, this is the same generation that are getting smaller and smaller apartments. Like here in New York anyway, people are living in shitholes as close as they can to major thoroughfares, right?
Right.
You know, people are making a lot of money, but they're not like, oh, I'm going to go get me this big sprawling house and pay all these taxes and furnish it. They're like, you know, I'm going to get a bike or, you know, lease a car,
Right.
be near the train. I'm attached to nothing.
Right.
Like, again, this is the same generation where no one's working 20, 30 years someplace. They're bouncing every 2 years. So I just think in general, the mode is I'm not getting attached to anything, anywhere, or anyone.
Okay. So based on that fear of attachment, which is just below ego, then compromises everything else in the food chain in terms of lust and greed and envy, all of these things that are a part of what influences us. But if they're letting go of attachment, does that mean they're more driven towards lust? Does that mean they're driven towards greed? Does that mean they're driven towards these emotions that are... And the reason why I'm going down this, is again, from the standpoint of what makes a superhero versus a superhoe, one of the things about being a superhero is that you tend to find balance in your emotions. In other words, you suppress your ego and all of the other feelings and things that are selfish, and you become more selfless. You give more of yourself. And, giving, is its own reward, they say, but also, he who giveth receiveth tenfold. So the idea of a superhero is based on the fact that they realize that by making an impact on others, they automatically receive back fulfillment. Whereas a superhoe, because they're focused on self, because they're focused on greed, let's say that they get rid of everything from a standpoint of attachment. So rather than it being about giving, it's about I have no attachment to anything So therefore, I can't give you love. I can't give anybody any type of real quality interaction because I don't want to be attached to anything.
So if true love loves back,
Yeah.
then these relationships, they're doomed because they're more like arrangements.
Right.
Now, I don't have any children or teenage children and all of that, but I have some friends that do. And I've heard some things like one friend of mine, his daughter was approaching her prom.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no prom dates. Like everyone is just like going in groups.
Right.
Now, when I was at that age, I remember like there was groups too, but
Prom was a huge
everybody
thing.
was paired up though.
That's right. That's right.
And
And you didn't have to be going with steady with somebody, but you asked a girl to the prom.
right.
That was a big thing.
Also too, at these parties, like a lot of these guys and girls aren't dancing.
Yeah.
They're like texting each other, but they're in the same room.
Right.
Technology is a great thing.
Right.
But I think what's getting lost is the ability to communicate.
And interact with each other.
Like, right. So, I mean, I remember, getting love notes. And you pass them back. And again, you don't have to take it there and go back that old school. But I just mean there was something to learning how to kick it.
So does that elevate a guy in today's society if he knows how to kick it compared to all of his peers who only know how to text?
It depends. A girl might be like, this is different and it's great. Or she might be turned off. She might be thinking to herself,
He's a superhoe.
yeah, why is he talking to me?
Right. Right.
Send me a picture of your dick and ask me what's up, because that's what's going on.
That's what they're
there's no
prone to.
bases.
Yeah.
There's no rounding the bases. By the time you get with somebody, you already saw their dick, their tits. So hold on though. That superheroes versus superhoes. We're talking about relationships now,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's all intertwined.
Yeah.
Like how you come into it, all the stuff you're carrying coming into it is going to affect how you view said person.
Right.
And
right.
and it starts out from the beginning, like if you're the kind of guy that doesn't value that salary driven woman,
Right.
when you meet when that guy meets her and that's what she's about, and he figures that out on her profile online as soon as he meets her, and he gets with her anyway,
Mm-hmm.
he's already going into it with finite thinking,
Right.
because that's not what he's into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll be right back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. All right, we're back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat, you mentioned earlier we have to get to part 2, but we actually addressed the male side of this in last week's episode. So for the upcoming podcast, I'm going to ask you this question. Is there an unfair label on women versus men when it comes to this whole idea of superheroes versus superhoes? And we'll get into that with branding in the next podcast.
I'll be ready.
All right. Pat, I don't give a fuck about PETA and animal rights. And I'm going to tell you why. We have a society, and I'm talking about a global society, where there is an outrageous amount of poverty, people on the verge of famine, people on the verge of drought, people on the verge of catastrophe of every measure from climate change. And yet, animal cruelty seems to be more important than kids in the great big scheme of things. And here's what I really am getting to. The fact that it's 55 cents a day on these commercials to feed a kid, but it's 67 cents a day to keep a dog from being put down. Now, there's some inequality there that I want to address. And I know it's just 12 cents a day. But the issue is that as human beings, our lack of respect for ourselves, our lack of respect for solving a crisis that could easily be solved by all of us. We can cure hunger. We can cure drinking water. We can give people fair living conditions. The other day, our president ridiculed a United States congressman about the conditions in Baltimore, a U.S. citizen, a U.S. city. Now, my problem with that is the fact that these are human beings of our country, which he's supposed to be a great patriot, and yet the crisis at the border is more important than his own people that live in a city here in the United States. This is why animal cruelty people are making more fucking money than people who are trying to solve world hunger, drought, and famine. That's my I don't give a fuck.
I give that a moment of silence. That mic drop. That was very good. I'd love to hear the feedback on that. My PSA, stop being a dick. So, if you're really, really wealthy, don't talk to someone who's struggling and your conversation is essentially to remind them of how rich you are. Like, you're steering them to try to get them to talk about them wishing they were you. Another example, if you're a gym dude, like you exercise a lot, don't intentionally saddle up next to someone who doesn't exercise and start talking to them about your regimen. You're being a dick, because to make yourself feel better, you're talking to them about an arena where they can't swim. They can't swim in that arena. You wouldn't have that same conversation with other people who exercise as much or more than you. Same way that wealthy person is not going to feel as confident around other wealthy people. It's a dick move. Don't do it. Stop being a dick.
Stop being a dick. All right, this has been Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Peace and love to all of you out there. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next go-around.
We appreciate the support, guys. See you next week.